Alright, let's put an end to this charade right now. Gogeta is better than Vegito, and 8 times out of 10, he'll probably win that famed fight between the two. But, but, there is a silver lining for Vegito fans out there. Vegito could win, and it depends on a variety of factors coming into play. When giving his commentary on the Dragon Ball Super Broly debut of Gogeta, the late Akira Toriyama said that Goku and Vegeta's Metamorph fusion technique and the Potara earrings are both equally matched trump cards. What the fan base took that to mean is that they're on equal footing power-wise at the time. But what I've come to take that to imply, as time has gone on, and as we've seen the way these characters fight and are represented in these video games on release, is that the outcome of their battle will remain the same no matter which technique Goku or Vegeta choose to use. The way the world works isn't like Homelander would insist that he's just straight up,
I'm smarter. I'm better. I am better.
Humans may have some of their attributes higher than their peers, while those peers might have another attribute higher than theirs, as long as they're not lazy. But we're all born on the same level. The same applies to Gogeta and Vegito. They're equal beings, but the application of their power is totally different. Vegito's mentality is more like Goku's in that he'd like to use the brute force of his strength to finish the fight, and Vegeta's preference to go all in with his strength from the start. Vegito is also more reliant on using brilliance on already known but superficial knowledge to get the upper hand in the hopes that it's enough to turn the tide. Gogeta, on the other hand, is like Vegeta in that he isn't necessarily relying on his power up front to define his strength and confidence in laying that smackdown on whichever opponent he faces. Goku does rely on power to feel confident, but still in that essence, Goku isn't afraid to take his time to test what he can do against his opponent in different forms, even if that's his base. Now, whether he gets his noggin rocked in the process, well, hindsight's definitely 2020. Back to Gogeta though. He definitely shares the knowledge that both Goku and Vegeta have gained through their battles. Things are rigged. Things are rigged. Gogeta, no matter what his form, always seems like he has the means to come up with a special solution to any problem. And Gogeta seems like no matter how long the fight drags on, he can just keep comboing you into oblivion and hardly break a sweat. On top of wanting to take things to the next level. But here's where the situation changes. Manga spoilers up ahead for those who don't want to get spoiled on events that have yet to be animated from the Dragon Ball Super manga. With the debut of Vegeta's newest form, Ultra Ego, derived from his battle senses burning and giving him the power to destroy, or really deatomize and release energy, fans have been wondering, what would a hypothetical fusion of Vegeta's Ultra Ego and Goku's Ultra Instinct look like? Firstly, is it even sustainable? Well, Vegeta hasn't been spending his time polishing Ultra Ego, seemingly to prefer using his Blue Evolution form against Beast Gohan in the manga, as he should. But Goku has been spending his time polishing Ultra Instinct, and for the time seems to get what Maris was telling him, that UI Saiyan is his top form. What does this mean for Vegito versus Gogeta? Well, Vegito seems to burn through his meter in blue pretty quickly, whereas Gogeta seems to have been able to stay in blue for a longer period of time. Toriyama did leave an interesting note that if the fight had a shortened time limit, Gogeta would likely win, but if it was longer, Vegeta would likely win. I don't think that has anything to do with the time limits each fusion has, Metamorph fusion being 30 minutes and Potara fusion being an hour. What that might have to do with comes down to their defenses and when their fires are at their peak. When Vegeta was throwing hands with Zamasu in West City, oh my god, I can't speak. Alright, hang on. When Vegeta was throwing hands with Zamasu in West City, it was obvious dude could take a few punches and literally sold a hit, feigning or actually taking damage from it, but it was an intentional setup. When Gogeta was faced with Broly's full uncontrolled transformation into, I think it's called Super Saiyan Type C, Gogeta got desperate in that moment and powered up to Super Saiyan Blue and started beating Broly down to incite fear and get him off of him. It seems the fire's means of defenses is for Vegito he tanks, and for Gogeta he hits hard in retaliation. As for how they start off, Gogeta seems to always be at the peak of power from its start. Think about how the massive energy of two Super Saiyan 4s that was increased boundlessly through fusion was sustained for 15 minutes by Gogeta all the way from the start in GT. Even in Legends, if you play it right, Gogeta could start off with 100% impact damage mitigation for a few timer counts. Whereas with Potara fusion, they never really start off at their best, but seem to get stronger as the fight goes on. Kale and Khalifa fused in their Super Saiyan 2 forms, yet when Kefla came out she was in base, and Vegito in the manga started in base, but then immediately powered up to Super Saiyan. Of course we know that it isn't the top form of either Goku or Vegeta at the time of the events of Majin Buu, but it might simply have not been possible for them to go further than that at the start of their fight. The thing we're not so sure about is, and I'm not going to get into it, is if there's a limit to how high the Potara strength goes, and the same goes for the Metamorph fusion strength. Are they just literally invincible at certain points of their fight, or what? What's the deal with Toyotaro? Let us know, man. Gogeta can keep it going endlessly because of his speed, agility, control, and air-to-air movement, and experience in the dynamics of hand-to-hand combat. But Vegito can keep his cool and find a way to counter-strike the threat in the present moment. So how would their fight turn out? We'll find out after this brief intermission. Nah, I'm just joshing you guys. But, yeah, so if you notice in Dragon Ball Heroes, Vegito and Gogeta are able to use higher forms than they showed off in the anime, with Vegito using Blue Kaioken, presumably times 20, and Gogeta using something that looks like a hybrid between Blue Evolution and UI Sign, although it could also just be the excess energy we often see Gogeta emanates, but in his blue evolved form. But the more Goku and Vegeta can handle their new power, the more their fusion should be able to. At this point in the series, I think they can kick it up to Ultra Instinct or Ultra Ego with moderate problems. However, and I'm sure you guys are thinking this, which one of the fusions gets to don the power of Ultra Instinct, and which one gets to hold the power of Ultra Ego? Well, that's the thing. There is no definitive answer. Because these fusions would use Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego at the same time. Well, you think they just settle on using one form when these battle-crazed Saiyans always want to push themselves to a higher level? Nah, bro. But to give you guys my take on the hypothetical answer, if they had to choose, I'd say Vegito would use Ultra Instinct because it's in line with his spirit more to be an all-rounder and be as best equipped as he can be for the fight. Whereas Gogeta would use Ultra Ego because at least in the Broly movie, we've seen he's the one with the burning battle spirit, and not only is already gifted with combat by using his brain mid-fight, that UI wouldn't fit him or be needed for him so long as he's conscious, but he practically already has a better technique than Destruction. Remember that rainbow color technique mirroring the OG Gogeta's Soul Punisher? On a technical level, that power might have something to do with binding or limiting energy, which is stronger than Destruction, which just releases the energy if anything. That said, Ultra Ego seems like it would be Gogeta's preferred next step, so that if he does have to take a hit, he can at least get stronger in the process. But anyways, back to this crazy reality-shattering fight. Gogeta is good when it comes to understanding energy. For him, he'd be capable of blending the Silver Gleam, Ultra Instinct, and the boundless fires of Ultra Ego in one, even if they seem to require different states of mind. He's smart enough to figure out their principles at the core to where he can use them without sacrificing his mentality to get there. For him, he'd be letting that burning power be natural for him and truly letting his subconscious do the work, while still doing what he wants. Which is practically what Gogeta is all about anyway.
And I can do whatever the fuck I want.
But for Vegito, he'd struggle to do this, because for as smart as Vegito is when faced with present circumstances, he picks up a flaw from Goku and Vegeta. He's one-dimensional. He goes in with the knowledge of in-battle trends and that's how he counters. But when it comes to higher thought, he's still pretty limited, and when that fails, he settles on overcoming his opponent through sheer force. This shows a problem for Vegito that he can't have more than a one-track mind. So for Vegito, tactically speaking, the best he can do is shift his mentality. Vegito again seems to be more naturally defensive than Gogeta, whereas Gogeta's defenses are more based on fighting prowess and his supreme offenses being his defense. Gogeta would be the first to kick it off after they fought as Super Saiyans. Vegito would probably have turned blue somewhere along the way, and yet surprisingly Gogeta at Super Saiyan would be able to keep up with Vegito's blue. You could throw some scattered reflections, spirit swords, split finger shots, and Punisher drives into the mix. But yeah, Gogeta then ends up turning it all up. Oh, I can't speak. Gogeta then ends up turning it up all the way to the Ultra Ego dash Ultra Instinct hybrid form. Vegito then relentlessly tries to hit him in blue, but Gogeta's dodging and Hakkaiing his swords, and after a while, the pressure of Gogeta's Ultra Ego can't let Vegito near him. Vegito is then forced into using Ultra Instinct with the Silver Sheen to start cutting through that pressure. But Gogeta decides it's best to not waste time, and he won't leave this to be decided in either one of them burning out the clock. He immediately puts on his finish sign and rushes in for the kill, hoping to force Vegito into using an Ultra Instinct dash Ultra Ego form similar to his. Because let's be honest, I admit, at this point it's not looking good for Vegito, and he needs to at least walk out of this fight with the hope that they can pull off a victory of some kind today. Vegito is able to cross up Gogeta in some ways mentally, but whenever he does, Gogeta's subconscious dodges for him. At one point, Gogeta throws a Destructo Disc-shaped Hakkai that Vegito just barely catches. Thanks to the sturdy, almost solid defenses Ultra Instinct gives, he was able to catch it in his hands and hold it off for a bit. But Gogeta was able to pressure wave it past him, and it slices his shirt and nicks off a quarter of his left Potara earring. Afterwards, it explodes not too far into. Oh, by the way, keep that in mind. By the way, remember how it seems like when these earrings like get smashed into pieces, you know, like the Potara fusion seems to be undone. Yeah, just keep that in mind. It might be a little something to worry about, I guess. Afterwards, it explodes not too far into the atmosphere, giving the clouds a purple hue in the sky, and then turning all the clouds in the sky into nothing. Gogeta will question why Vegito is not trying to use Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego, but Vegito admits that he can't pull that one off. It's hard for him to be that flexible mentally. Exhausted, Vegito tries to power up his Ultra Instinct further, but ends up reaching Blue Kaioken times 20, with a lot of bulk in his muscles. He then fires a ton of consecutive energy blasts, and Gogeta screams at the blast. Vegito, out of fear, goes in for one all-out salvo, his Savage Strike to deal at least a blow on Gogeta. Gogeta goes in with his rainbow-colored Soul Punisher-like technique, partly because he wants to, but partly because he doesn't like how gloomy the sky looks and wants to at least make it look somewhat decent. Vegito then locks in for the biggest consecutive ki blast he fired earlier with 2 fingers from each hand and tries to ambush Gogeta from behind, but Gogeta then seemingly bounces on the air itself and instinctively leaves behind trails of his own energy that walls off those ki blasts, leaving him free to slam Vegito with his Soul Punisher. After 5 minutes, Vegito recovers with Gogeta, thinking they should end the fight. The sky does look a little bit different to him, Vegito says, and he questions if it really has been just 5 minutes. With no time to spare and running on low energy from the recovery, Vegito goes all in for his last resort, Ultra Ego, hoping for a desperate battle of attrition and to eventually overwhelm him. Vegito does the same consecutive energy blast, only this variation is full of mini Hakkais. Some of them do manage to connect on Gogeta, while others do damage to the environment, and yes, some wildlife was harmed in the making of this fight. Gogeta counters what approaches him with deflects, and hurl kicks one of the Hakkai blasts back at Vegito with 100 times the size and intensity. Vegito ends up eating the damage, but with hardly any stamina left in the tank. At this point, Vegito's hands and earrings glow silver, and he realizes he might be reaching his limit if that technique is staying in, and he's doing his best to maintain Ultra Ego. He puts all of his strength into unleashing 2 gigantic silver swords while falling in and out of Ultra Instinct, and tries to slice and dice with that monstrosity, and Gogeta lets some of it slice him with no real effect. The Soul Punisher effect he did before limited the effects Vegito's ki could have on him. Gogeta lets him know this, but Vegito attacks through regardless. Turns out Vegito was borrowing a trick Vegeta used in the Moro arc and was gathering the energy from the planet he was destroying to siphon. It wasn't a big ass spirit bomb, but it was enough to replenish the ki and stamina he needed. Gogeta then puts his shield up with Ultra Ego and takes this into close range combat. Vegito's swords are dissipating, and the two eventually are keeping it to a worn out brawl, with Vegito eating some hits and attacking during those, and Gogeta eating lesser and lesser hits as he's improving and Vegito is getting worn out. At the end, Vegito is near death stamina and options, and and for a second, that ethereal being that Goku manifested against Moro tries to hold off Gogeta, but Gogeta, in the most gag, non-canonical way, headbutts the ether spirit, and it actually takes damage. Mind you, this being is actually using up the spirit bomb energy in the process. It switches to Ultra Ego for a second, and Gogeta hurls a massive Soul Punisher at it, and its form collapses. Gogeta then puts a final sign of pressure on Vegito. He cusps his forearms together powerfully and strenuously brings them apart, and shatters their local reality and brings its energy within himself. Gogeta then states, "This is what I can do. This is my limit. You shouldn't be near yours. And this is what I really am." Vegito looks at this overwhelming power and he wonders how could he have let the gap get so far. He never opened his mind, he guesses, or maybe he just never knew. What was he fighting for? Was it pride? That was his main motivation, like Vegeta? Do you want to see how far his own strength would take him, like Goku? No. It was hope. Gogeta placed that in him too. He got that that's why he's pushing this so unbearably far. Back then, against Zamasu, against Buu, he couldn't beat them, and it's always because he's missing something or he learned too late. But he was still here. Hope is built on the foundations of patchwork, on effort. It's not over, because he's still here. As soon as Vegito stands, Gogeta fires the energy silhouette of himself, almost kind of like when Aang fired an Airman version of himself at Azula. Except, you know, and that's season 2 finale. That show was awesome, by the way. It seems to be representative of Gogeta too, being ever-changing, like expanding and shrinking, but never in a predictable fashion, and fading in and out of existence seemingly. Vegito immediately activates UI Sign and punches the energy of Gogeta. Gogeta powers himself up, and which in turn powers up the energy man. The gleam of UI Sign gets stronger until Vegito's eyes can't be seen, and he pierces right through. Gogeta, unwilling to lose, goes all in for a bludgeoning punch to Vegito's face, and Vegito runs to him on foot with as much mix-up as he can manage. Vegito kicks it up and runs at a higher speed, and for a split second a silver stream is left in his trail. Gogeta's face is seen as his insides are rattled. Vegito took the solidified state of Ultra Instinct to land a heavy hit. In the last second of the sun, Vegito shifts his power briefly to Ultra Ego to land a powerful burst of destruction that breaks Gogeta down. But for an even briefer moment, Vegito's aura and earrings gleam blue, even more blue than normal. Was it just Super Saiyan Blue? Or was there something more there? Gogeta couldn't tell. The energy emanating was enough to illuminate the universe from its standard void to a huge blue. With the final blow delivered, Vegito unfused into Goku and Vegeta, and Gogeta still remained in his fused state but in his base form. Goku and Vegeta freak out with their time being done, and both being exhausted, but Gogeta says, "Don't worry, I'm tapped out. Done." So this is what you can do when your all isn't enough. Then I can rest easy. Looks like there's hope, after all. Gogeta rests and diffuses. With that, Goku and Vegeta from the Vegito figure that they were right to not count infusion, and they start debating which one of their techniques gave them a bigger upper hand against Gogeta, Ultra Instinct or Ultra Ego. The other Goku and Vegeta smile and say, "We never learn, do we?" Vegeta says, "Nope. I prefer it stays that way."
Dramatic finish!
And yeah, that's pretty much how the fight would go, guys. Let me know what you guys agree on or disagree on with how that fight turned out. What do you think you would have added to that fight, or if you think the results should have been different? I'd definitely love to hear what you guys would come up with. That said, as strong as Goku and Vegeta are when fused, I imagine there's a stronger fusion that has yet to showcase. Imagine the power between the two young heroes that have been focused on the most in Dragon Ball, Gohan and Oob. Their energy and level of latent power would be crazy, alright? Do we call them Oobna, or Go-Oob, or Go-Hoob, or maybe Buhan? I don't know, who knows? Anyways, don't mind me, guys. I'll catch you in the next one, and let me know what you guys thought of my editing on this one, because it might be my last time doing it. See you later!